Coming up tonight, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper informs a curious public that renovations are ongoing to the Hilton British Colonial Hotel, which was shut down since early 2022. Some hope for employment still. Plus, the Rotary Clubs of Grand Bahama are all about giving gifts of sight, the most treasured gift ever. And let's fast track the eradication of HIV/AIDS. Our Katrina Dragovich has the details straight ahead. This is Our News Weekend Edition. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Megan Shepard. A heads of agreement has been established and renovations are in motion at the Hilton Resort, according to Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper. Back in May, Cooper gave the assurance the hotel will reopen this year. The Hilton closed its doors earlier this year, leaving more than 100 people unemployed. Cooper telling reporters this past week the developers are expected to make a statement on the matter.
They're working on their renovations. The government has agreed, the heads of agreement, and the terms for the renovations. We expect there to be visible signs of this renovations in due course. I expect that the developers will make a statement as well. But they're renovating and they will reopen. As to what the specific updated date is for opening, we'll let you know in due course.
An overnight traffic fatality in the Pine Forest community on Grand Bahama, claiming the life of a 39-year-old male. Police say the victim was attempting to cross the street when he was struck by a gray 2016 Chrysler 200 that was traveling east along Queens Highway 8 Mile Rock. The victim suffered serious injuries and died on scene. Police are investigating this incident. And police need your help tonight locating 14-year-old Shantavia Higgs. According to reports, she was last seen on Thursday, November 24th, at her residence on Soldier Road. She is described as dark brown, 5 feet 7 inches, and heavy build. If you have any information regarding 14-year-old Shantavia Higgs, please call the police at 328-8477 or your nearest police station. The Rotary Clubs of Grand Bahama and Freeport partnered with the Rotary Club of Fleming Island out of Florida to give the gift of sight. Fleming Island Rotarian Randy Bob and President of the Grand Bahama Club, Donovan Bowe, breaks down the initiative.
We test the eyes and then we put a portable tester on them. And once we determine the strength of the requirement for the lenses, then we put the lenses in the glasses and then we provide them for free for the folks. We also are providing reading glasses for those people who need them. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to provide as many glasses as possible. We carried enough for 100.
So far it's been excellent. The response has been great. There's been a bit of misinformation of a lot of persons showing up without appointments, having gone through the screening process to show that this is something that they would qualify for and need, and we've had to turn a few of them away, and some of them we have been able to assist as walk-ins, but it is a finite number of frames that they're prepared to assist, of 100 frames, and we are extremely pleased for this type of partnership to exist.
The free initiative, dubbed a huge success, as Fleming Island Rotarians say it was extremely rewarding to instantly improve the quality of life for several recipients.
There's a gentleman there I just helped. He couldn't even see when we held up 5 fingers at even 5 feet. He just got a pair of glasses that he was able to see almost a huge improvement. He said he's going to be able to walk his dog now and things like that. Before he couldn't even put his leash on.
There was a young lady who was 12 years old, started out with 2100 vision, and by the time we got her glasses, we got her to 2030. So I felt really good about that because, you know, you think about her in school, whether or not she can see that board in school, and now I feel much better thinking that maybe she can, you know, it'll help her progress in school with that.
We've already this morning seen people who were unable to see the standard eye chart, could only look at fingers, be brought down to 20/30 and 20/50 vision. So a working vision from essentially legally blind, unable to drive.
The Grand Bahama Health Services also partnering to assist.
We are here as their support team, as the healthcare professionals, taking any referrals and any further evaluations of the persons here that may not need glasses or who glasses may not be needed for at this time. So person with cataracts, glaucoma, they will be referred to us and we will take on their management from there.
European luxury vehicles are entering the local all-electric car market with the arrival of the new all-electric BMW 14 this week. Our Marina Leonard has the story on how the luxury items of the past are moving into the future.
So now we're going to do a bit of an acceleration test.
There's a new kid in town when it comes to electric cars, and it's BMW's all-electric i4. We've seen years of electric vehicles coming out on the road, but now European luxury vehicles are entering the local stage. BMW's first all-electric vehicle promises not only the power to change the planet, but also power on the road. But in Nassau, is it really power we need? Or is it mileage? Omega Motors salesperson Carvel Wallace speaks to the car's city performance.
So yes, we have a lot of stop and go. And again, it is great for that. The island is so small that the commute around town is just perfect for electric vehicles. It's just perfect for electric vehicles. There's no need for the vehicle to have a combustion engine running when you're sitting in traffic. So with all electric, all of that is done away with. You still have all the comforts of everything in the car without the carbon emissions from a combustion engine.
After a spring season of climbing gas prices, you may be interested to hear that Wallace says overnight charges in the i4 could last a week or more, as the car's range is around 100 miles farther than the weekly average a person will drive. And while some other electric models make the design choice to highlight their eco-friendly nature, this i4 has chosen the opposite. If you were to park it next to one of its combustion engine counterparts, you'd be pressed to tell the difference. But when it comes to duty rates of electric vehicles, the difference is abundantly clear.
So the advantage of this car, or the hybrid, the electric cars, the customs duty structure is an incentive for you to lean towards these. The duty rate is much less, 10% on some, 25%, where otherwise it'll be 45 or 65%. So there is a lot of reason to go ahead with either the hybrid or the all-electric.
With the global focus on minimizing carbon emissions over the past few years, electric car sales have taken off, and manufacturers are certainly responding. Just yesterday, it was announced that BMW is doubling their investment at its Hungarian factory to over $2 billion. The reason? To add a high-voltage battery assembly facility. And Wallace tells us that's not the only place where big changes are on the way.
By 2025, which is just 3 years away, we all, the car dealers, will be required to have electric or hybrid offerings for the public.
Which means if you haven't yet made the switch to electric, that could soon be on the way. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Still to come on Our News Weekend Edition, countries around the world observing 16 days of activism to end violence against women. Stay tuned. And let's fast track the end to the AIDS epidemic. That's coming up when Our News Weekend Edition rolls back in after the break. It affects about 26,000 people in the Bahamas, but for many, diabetes goes undiagnosed until there is a crisis or medical intervention. As Diabetes Awareness Month wraps up, our Christina Dragovich speaks with a certified diabetes educator about how important it is to take control of your health.
The thing is about diabetes is often there are no symptoms. You hear about the symptoms of feeling thirsty, going to the bathroom a lot, and weight loss. But more often than not, diabetes does not have any symptoms.
Nurse Anita Cates, a certified Caribbean diabetes educator at Family Medicine Center, explains the only way to really know where your blood sugar stands is to visit a doctor and get a blood test. Diabetes is a condition determined by how your body turns food into energy. There are 3 types: type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes. While gestational diabetes affects pregnant women, type 1 is usually found in children, teens, and young adults, and type 2 is considered preventable, although there are some risk factors.
First off, you need to know your status and you need to know if you're at risk. So you may be at risk if you have a family history, if you're overweight, you're sedentary, but also sometimes we just can't help it due to age, being Afro-Caribbean descent, you are more likely to get diabetes. So first off, know your status. Are you at risk? Diabetes care is based on the individual, and that is so important. There's no just one prescription or way for everybody.
Cates says there are 7 areas of diabetes education, including healthy eating, coping, and problem solving, among others.
Managing sugar starts right at the basis of education. That is so important. The more you know about diabetes and management, the better off you're going to be.
Whether you have diabetes, pre-diabetes, or a clean bill of health, Cates adds there's one thing you can do to ensure you stay healthy.
And I hate to be the burden of bad news, but really sugary drinks in our diet really does increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So definitely decreasing the sugars and also decreasing the amount of carbohydrates in the diet. Now, I'm not saying stop. We're talking about a reduction in carbohydrates and awareness of where you're up to with your blood sugars.
If you have diabetes and are in need of support, Cates invites you to join Zoom In on Diabetes, a virtual support group available to people in the Bahamas. For more information, contact Family Medicine Center. Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
Thanks, Christina. Bahamian military and emergency response leaders being challenged to continue closing the gender gap in the management of disasters and humanitarian efforts. This following a recent visit from the United States Department of Defense Northern Command, or U.S. NORTHCOM, for its $10 million donation toward local disaster preparedness efforts. During the visit, U.S. NORTHCOM Director of Logistics and Engineering, Major General Connie Jenkins, discussing with local military leaders ways to address gender-related challenges and disparities in disaster response operations and humanitarian assistance. Jenkins says empowering women benefits everyone in a society, adding the rising tide lifts all boats.
I'm very impressed with all of the Royal Bahamian Defense Forces that I've met. Very, very sharp, very professional individuals. What a great opportunity, though, to look at some of the logistics and engineering pieces. For instance, they're working on rehabbing a portion of Coral Harbor, and we're looking at potentially working on boat ramps and different facilities and buildings that can be useful, supply and storage warehouses, things like that. Very logistics and engineering focused, but when you have the infrastructure right, the rest seems to be a lot easier to handle.
The Bahamas joining countries around the world observing 16 days of activism to end violence against women campaign, which began November 25th and ends on Human Rights Day, December 10th. The Department of Gender and Family Affairs of the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development led a ribbon pinning exercise to commemorate the initiative during that joint sitting of the House and Senate earlier this week. And still to come on Our News Weekend Edition, a super yacht Marina on Paradise Island set to bring big bucks to the Bahamian economy. Berthany McDermott is up next with the details. A new fabulous speedboat tour is launched for our visitors, and Prime Minister Philip Davis was on hand at the occasion. Those stories and more when we return. Welcome back to the Weekend Edition. A new multi-million-dollar investment opened on Paradise Island with many attractions and is expected to bring millions into the Bahamian economy. Berthany McDermott was there and filed this report.
It's a $250 million investment in the Paradise Island community, expected to bring in around $100 million annually. The Hurricane Hole super yacht Marina at Paradise Island, which was built during the COVID-19 pandemic, opened Friday evening with much fanfare. Sterling Global Financial Chairman David Kasoy.
The impact will probably be over $100 million from on an annual basis in some way. Whether they come here, spend money here, go to the restaurants, go to Atlantis. So I would say these people spend a lot of money here.
Sterling comments, the area where the marina was built will feature service and retail businesses on its first level, professional office spaces on the second level, and luxury 1- and 2-bedroom residents on the third floor. Yacht owners and residents will have access to restaurants, a gourmet grocery store, a day spa, and a medical clinic, among other amenities.
The grocery store will probably generate at least $10 million, so there's $10 million there, plus a lot of employees that stays here on the island.
Prime Minister Philip Davis was also on hand for the opening and ribbon cutting. He says the development will diversify Paradise Island's luxury vacation profile.
This boom is bringing excitement to Paradise Island, adding to the convenience for Paradise Island residents and the experience of visitors at hotels and about short-term rentals. More dining, boating choices, entertainment, and convenient services will serve to augment the overall experience of residents and visitors alike.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper calling the grand opening a great day for tourism and investments. He added he looks forward to working with Sterling in the future.
They're one of our top investors at this moment, a developer of the gold standard, and I'm certainly looking forward to all of their developments for the future.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Cruising Adventures is the newest tour company in town, and they're offering guests a step further in exhilaration by offering them the driver's seat, literally. Cruising Adventures President Demetrius Hepburn.
1 year ago, I decided to bring a certain type of boating experience to the Bahamas. I did extensive research and became fixated on the idea of a 2-seater mini speedboat. Absolutely consumed by my vision.
And from the dream, Hepburn spent months in Mexico learning the art of building the speedboats he hopes to use. Now, Cruising Adventures boasts a 10-boat fleet with hopes to double that by next year.
We just presently ordered another 16 engines, so by spring break we'll have about 26 boats in the water. After that, we're going to start branching out to the islands first before we do the expansion to Turks and Caicos and Jamaica.
December is almost here and we look forward to cooler temperatures. The weather report is coming up. And it's time to eradicate the HIV/AIDS epidemic. That's straight ahead after this break. Welcome back. As December approaches, the weather is cooling off, a much-needed break from those steamy hot days and nights. Let's see what's in store for us weather-wise in the upcoming days. The world and the Bahamas are on a mission to end the AIDS epidemic by 2030. With World AIDS Day on December 1st, where do we stand with meeting those goals? Our Christina Dragovich speaks with the head of the National HIV/AIDS program in the Bahamas.
The United Nations fast-track goal to end the AIDS epidemic means getting 95% of people with the virus diagnosed, 95% on medication, and 95% of people with the gold standard of viral suppression, where you wouldn't be able to detect the virus in a teaspoon of blood. Director of the National HIV/AIDS and Infectious Diseases Program for the Bahamas, Dr. Nakia Forbes, says the Bahamas is making good progress.
I'm happy to say that we have made progress over the years. We have increased the number of persons who know their status. We have increased the number of people who are on treatment, and we've also increased the number of people who have viral suppression.
The hope is by fast-tracking the AIDS response, 28 million HIV infections around the world can be diverted between 2015 and 2030, along with 21 million AIDS-related deaths during the same period. While Dr. Forbes says the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic had some effect on the local program, it's now back on track.
There were curfews, that transportation may have been reduced, that people were in their homes. We did have a reduction in HIV testing. So that did fall significantly. And we've been able to regroup in 2021 and here in 2022.
However, according to the UN AIDS 2022 report, the global AIDS response is under threat as 4,000 people become infected with HIV every day around the world. The Caribbean region still has the highest HIV prevalence of any region outside of sub-Saharan Africa. But the Bahamas is one of 6 countries in the region that has introduced daily oral pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, in national guidelines. In order to achieve those UN goals, Dr. Forbes says there's still work to be done.
We have a significantly long way to go still. We still only have about 68% of people on treatment. It's going up, but we need to get a higher number of people on treatment. And we're happy to report that viral suppression for the entire group is about 81%, which is also up. But we recognize that we have a long way to go, and we're going to continue to work toward that.
And that will take the continued dedication and support of key stakeholders, including government, civil society, key populations, and private stakeholders. Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
Thanks, Christina, and thank you so much for joining us for Our News Weekend Edition. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepard. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend.